We're looking at a Euro US dollar 60-minute chart here, and I wanted to show you this because I want to show you how to trade pivot points while the market is in consolidation. And we know that the market is in consolidation the majority of the time. Probably 60 to 80% of the time the market is range bound, whether the ranges are micro ranges or fractals, or whether they are large ranges, as in this example. Here we see a range of approximately 150 pips, and then the range begins to tighten to approximately 100 pips here, and the longer the market is in consolidation and as it becomes tighter, it just builds up more market energy. So when the market decides to decide on a price adjustment in the currency cross, then the larger the potential move. So the longer the consolidation, the larger the potential move out of the consolidation, which is important to note on all time frames. The bold red lines here are our central pivot points for the day, and I'm going to expand this in just a moment, but I want you to see how we must abide by the simple principle of buying in the buy zone, selling in the sell zone. For example, price opens, the vertical lines separate the days. Price opens in the sell zone. It makes attempts at new highs here and fails. This would be R1, and then price falls. Price falls down to right down to S1 in this case. S2 actually, I'm sorry. Price falls down to S2. S2 and the 10-day moving average, a convergence of the two, which is a point at which price, of course, could stall, as we see here, and of course this is all after the fact, but I want to show you in principle how this works. While we're in consolidation, now we open up in the buy zone, and that's fine. There may or may not be a trade here, but you see how price moves up here deep into the sell zone. In this case, there's a potential trade here, but I prefer that it come to the previous day's high or the M4 or second level of resistance. So the deeper it goes into the sell zone, the better. Here it goes, it's relatively shallow and stalls at R1, but the next day it moves into the sell zone. This is actually the Friday Sunday scenario, and starts to fall. We open up in the sell zone. The ranges are getting much smaller now, and you see how we're at S2. We see a nice candlestick formation at S2, and then price rallies. Now here, the only place you really want to look for a trade is here, for example, deep into the buy zone, testing the previous high. We go only to R1 in this case, and I would like to see it get at least past R1, closer to R2 for a sell opportunity. Now we move into the next day of trading, so we have this whiplash, and we move into the next day of trading. Price comes down, but it comes down to the interweek low, which is an important point. It is more ideal if it comes down to S2, but it comes down to S1 and this low. This low is very important. This low overrides any other technical levels of support. Price comes down, tests it, and responds. The next day, price comes down again into the sell zone, tests this level at S1 and responds. In fact, it comes all the way down and tests this level here, and then price responds by rallying. The deeper into the sell zone or the deeper into the buy zone, the higher the probability price is going to move in your favor on entry. When we're in consolidation, have a very close look at the previous highs and previous lows, as they are going to be primary reference points for your trading. Levels of support and resistance will override the identifiable levels of support and resistance. Levels of support and resistance will override the technical pivot levels of support and resistance. But when the two converge, then there's a higher probability of a price bounce. Look for convergences like this, where we have S2 and the 10-day moving average, particularly after a big move when the range has been filled for the day. This is a 140 pip move, a nice long move that has sucked up some flows from the international banks. Again, we see a trend here. We want to sell at the far end of the range in the sell zone and buy at the far end of the range in the buy zone.